Welcome back to Fleshing It Out. This shame series is all about sex. And I'm not going to lie, for me, it started out feeling awkward, but by the end, I think it was one of my favorites because it really goes to show how much we need to normalize conversations around this. And so in this series, we talk about everything from things being awkward to trauma to things you can do to spice it up. And so I encourage you to listen to all the episodes, but of course, be mindful for what's right for you. If anything is triggering, please seek out professional help. We also have some great VIPs on our website that can help starting to unpack a little bit of that. So you can find them on samanthaspittle.com/VIPs. Today, I'm joined by Ashleigh Renard, author of the book Swing and the new workbook, Keeping It Hot. She is all about less shame, less blame, more joy, and more intimacy. And what I love about her is that she is honest and fun and is passionate about helping people rehab shabby marriages. And her book, Swing, gives an honest look at what we do when we are feeling a need for more in our life and the different places we go searching for it. And more importantly, what we find we truly need. And so I'm so grateful for her honesty, willingness to share, and amazing book. So join Ashleigh and I as we flesh it out. Then I read your book and I was like, this is everything, because you talk about the sex stuff, but it's like bait and switch, which I joke about my platform is because I started because I shit my pants and that's what I was going to take to the grave. And then I started telling people and I wasn't the only one. And I was like, why?
That's how it started with fleshing it out. Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So why?
All right. I love this so much, Sam. It's like, and this is why I wrote Swing, that I felt like this was my deepest, darkest secret that I couldn't tell anyone. And I was harboring so much shame over finding out that my marriage wasn't perfect. And the way in which I found out was like, I accidentally fell in love with another man I met at a sex club. Oops. It's like, where do you start with this story? Like, are there any humans on earth who I could actually tell this full story to? And I thought, no, there aren't. So I'm going to make myself write a book about it and tell everyone.
And now here you are. Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun. Ah. It was like, it's like Brene Brown says, like, shame can't live in the light. And I was just like, I'm just going to just take this thing that I think is the very worst thing about me. The very first worst thing I've done. And the thing that shows all of those awful character traits that I must have deep at my core, right? Just rotten.
Yes.
And all the things. But I had already lived it, healed from it, transformed from it when I decided now I'm going to make this into art to share it.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. It has to be processed or it just comes out like, blah, blah, blah. Like you're being spewed upon.
Yeah.
Right. It has to have like, there has to be like a little bit of separation, a little bit of like, just like, the artist's understanding that when someone else takes your thing that you've made, they're going to experience it in their own way.
Yes.
And that's okay.
That's why you have to be at a place where I love the term that we share from a scar, not a wound. And I feel like that's what allows us to give it out and be like, here's my thing. This is what I learned from it, but you might get something totally different, but like, here you go.
Absolutely. And I was going to say that too. We share our stories from the scars, not the wounds, because we have to make sure that, there's always going to be some feedback that doesn't feel good. Right. But luckily, touch wood, for me, that's like
I always
like 500, like 500 to 1, at least 100 to 1, usually 500 to 1. It's like, thank you, slut. Thank you. And honestly, it's so rare.
But it says more about them though. Like coming into this conversation, I was like, I read the book in one day and I was like, oh my gosh, where to even go? Because it is a joke amongst my friends. Like I've always said, no Dateline shit. That's like my thing. I don't like anything anything non-vanilla, like, because it's just, but that's why I'm freaking loving this series, because with all these conversations, it started out with a podcast I actually listened to, which is we all have our own sex stories, right? Like, and instead of either trying to pathologize things or just accept everything, it's more important that we understand our stuff. So that like planted the seed. And then through these conversations, it's like, oh my gosh, the same theme in all areas of life is that it's not about you. Like, as I'm pointing at you, your story, it's like, it's all the stuff it's bringing up in me. Like, so, oh my gosh. So when I share my stuff, people are going to react to it based on theirs. And also on a side note too, I've also realized that because you're a brilliant writer, and I just like, it's like listening to your best friend describe her stuff. So thank you. I realized like, oh my gosh, I have an issue with consent, lying, deception, predatory behavior. Like those are my issues. And it's like, because so much in the world is connected to sex stuff, or Dateline shit, as I would say. So it's like, I just feel like throughout this, I'm like unpacking my own stuff too. So side note, thank you very much.
Side note, you're welcome.
I was like, oh my gosh. So for today, I would love to know what you want to jump into, because your book, and I say this in the best way possible, it's the best bait and switch I've ever read.
Yes. Okay. Sam, thank you for that. It was a purposeful bait and switch. So, hi, everybody. Sam's talking about my book, Swing. And the first scene in that book is me waiting in line to use the bathroom at a sex party in New York City that was invite only. We had to send in headshots and a relationship bio to get on the damn guest list. And it looks like a casting call for The Bachelor. Like, people are just gorgeous. Okay. And so I'm there and I'm waiting to use the bathroom. And I end up going into the bathroom with this kind gentleman in front of me because I really need to go. And this woman pushes past me into the women's room and he's like, just come in with me. And there's this thing like that, if you're at a sex club and someone says, especially a hot someone with a British accent says, hey, you want to come with me? Like, you may say yes. So I go in to the bathroom, and that's where it starts. And since we're in the bathroom, I'll tell you, and since, we're fleshing it out, there was no toilet in the bathroom. So this man I had just met helped me like prop up in this tiny New York bathroom, like spider climb position to pee in the urinal. There was a urinal.
So perfect.
Yeah. And then I made out with him. But anyway, so that was the story. And then I leave the bathroom to go find my husband. But the story is not really about sex clubs. The story is about how easy it is to lose yourself in the roles that you think you should be playing for other people. And I'm not even talking about kinky role play. I'm talking about being a wife and being a mother and a daughter and a business owner. And I coached figure skating for 23 years. So I was coaching teams and teams and teams. Like, at the time that all of this was going down in my marriage, my organization, I just tripled the size of it. So it was 10 teams, 150 skaters on 10 teams, who I was showing up for every single day. And while I'm showing up for them, I'm realizing I haven't shown up for myself in a decade. But all of us have those things that we're so good at, that we're so strong at, that really mask so much of our vulnerability, mask so many of our needs for ourselves and others. But for me, this was in realizing, in putting myself in this situation where my marriage was imploding, I realized, oh, wow, like I do not have the stable foundation anywhere in my life that I thought maybe I had.
Yes. And it's funny. I love how you walk through kind of those stories, because I mean, hello, I mean, who doesn't love to just sit and listen to stories? So like that alone. But your insights, like the first part of reading it, but then I'm like highlighting like crazy because all of your aha moments, I feel like that's the part that a lot of times we skip through. And I grew up like Sex and the City, binging that with my girlfriends in college. Like we watch, all the DVDs, and that kind of glamorized it and then kind of made light of it. And it's like, there's so much more underneath, and it's just stuff we all deal with. And so I just loved that you addressed all of it.
It really is. And okay, so all of us are looking to feel filled up, all of us. And most of us have at least one or two ways that we do that. That's not that great for us, right? Whether it's scrolling, whether it's shopping, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's gambling, right? And in my story, I showed how 10 years into my marriage, 10 years and 3 kids into my marriage, really in a stressful situation at work. So my husband's a stock trader and I coached figure skating. And I'm like, if you ever want to guarantee yourself a stomach ulcer, like deal with like the stock market or figure skating parents, like either one. Right.
And then you combine them and you have a lot.
We had a lot. We had a lot. And I mean, I go back in the book and tell, how things were tricky for us when our kids were really little too. And I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, there's so much, like life is so much right now, but it'll get better, right? But it didn't get better, Sam. It just got more and more, like more people, more responsibility, more to hold. So in the book, I show how, after a decade or more of really trying to be self-sufficient, I find this kind of release or this out or this like channel, this pipeline of some validation through attention from other men. Because we start consensually, right, going to lifestyle sex clubs, like the swing lifestyle, just for like a fun time. Like we were like, oh my God, we worked so hard. What if we just let loose and just went to a club, just did our own thing, but like just for that atmosphere. But right away, I started getting some attention, and that was something that was always lacking in my marriage was affection, was even I say in the book, like my husband, Manny, had this joke where he would say, I told you once that I loved you. Unless I tell you otherwise, assume I continue to love you.
Yes.
And he like stuck to that. And I, firstborn child, straight A student, competitive figure skater, like my parents put me on skates when I was 2.5, right? Like I don't even remember not knowing how to skate. Just reaching for the highest level of difficulty and not having to ask for help was like the way I tried to make myself of value in the world.
And it's funny, you see why we are attracted to people that kind of continue the narratives that we created when we are kids. Like you didn't, quote, need that validation because you are a naturally striving person.
Right. Naturally striving. Yeah. I don't need someone to tell me I'm pretty. I don't need to tell someone to tell me I'm smart. I don't need to, I don't need. I'm the one who doesn't need anything. I'm the one who doesn't need anything. That's how I'm a good kid. That's
Are you in my therapy session today?
Right. I'm the one that, I mean, that's like, we all fulfill these different roles in our families and in our, teams, organizations, but so much of it goes back to family. And I was like, I'm the one who doesn't need anything. I'm the one who will never be a pain. I'm the one who will always have accomplishments that'll make you proud. I'm the one. So then to get married to someone who just kind of matched that up with, was a match. And then to be going through life and just to feel like I need more of something. So I reach for another accomplishment. I reach for growing my business.
Mm-hmm.
I have another kid. I have a home birth. I homeschool. I mean, this was before pandemic too, like homeschooling on purpose.
Yeah. Yes,
before
you chose that. You said something about what I feel like resonated. There's so, like I said, there's so much that resonates, even if, like you said, we all reach for something. And so for you, it was this attention and going to these lifestyle clubs. There's so much goodness in the book that if that's not what someone's reaching for, and even just our conversation today, it's like you reach for something, but there was something missing, like you said, with your husband. And you said, you talked about how you just filled it with like more relationships. He can't meet my needs. So I'm going to pour into these relationships. And as you just said, I'm going to achieve this and I'm going to do this. And so I feel like that's where there's so many women. That's the common bond, I feel, and men too, but especially women, that you're feeling unfulfilled. But when we know that it's sex, money, and what's the other one? I don't know, that we fight about, like people, those are the top common things. It seems logical that obviously if we're not fulfilled, these are the areas we need to make more money. We need to improve our sex life. Yeah. We don't think about all these other things like, oh, I need more, just maybe attention or validation or connection with my spouse, but that's not on the table. So we just need to fix sex.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that brings me to where how my platform has grown and how the community that I've magnetized to myself and just all of this has grown and shifted since Swing was published. So I started making, a few months before the book came out, I made a video that was called How to Keep Monogamy Hot, Part 1. Sam, I didn't even know what part 2 was going to be, but I did part 1.
Yes.
And I was like, decide what time of the day you want to have sex. Like in our house, like night times are for sleeping and mornings are for coffee. And then it had like that video was like me, like this morning face. I was like, hi, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh yeah, that sleepy face. We all know that sleepy face. We wake up and we're like, who is that?
What is this?
So sleepy. Right. The reaction was incredible to the point now where my videos get like 7 to 8 million views a week.
Yes.
Like it's just, it's wild. It's wild.
Because it's something that like, this is the whole thing. I went into this sex series, like kind of like, tippy toeing, like, I mean, amongst some of my friends, I'm the out there one talking, that talks about crazy stuff, but like, this is scary. But the thing is, every couple, this is a huge part of life. And your video, I mean, I said, I started following you because like how to keep monogamy hot. Like, yes, how to, because when you were in college and meeting people and it's like, it's new, it's fresh, it's exciting. And then, but we come, and then when we talked about this in some other episodes, you just get to a place like, this is my life now. I'm a mom. And then, like I said, we all have our sex stuff. So it's like, well, I don't want to do this or that. So we're just ho-hum, check the block. And it's like, your life doesn't have to be ho-hum. You can have a fulfilled marriage. You can have like emotionally, physically, it's possible. Yeah. And sex can be a good thing. And that's why it's so weird, because it's something that, especially if you come from a faith background and stuff, that there's so much shame with it. But the views that you get, it's such proof. Like, guys, people want to have not only sex, they want to have good sex. Like
everybody wants to have, okay. We have our asexual friends and things. Okay. Yes. Everyone who likes sex wants to have great sex. Okay. Yes. And in a relationship, in a committed, intimate partnership, especially if it's an exclusive, like marriage, can we have good sex? Like, it's like really high up there on the list of like, yes, please, shooting star, could you give that to me? Okay. So here's the thing with my videos. I think this comes from coaching adolescents for so long. Okay. My videos in 30 seconds can disarm someone. So they feel like, oh, this is as comfortable as like talking about the weather. Yes. I can introduce something in a way that maybe they haven't heard it before. So they're like, oh, okay. I could consider that. And then at the end, I drop them exactly where I always know what action I want them to take at the end of it. Okay. whether I want them to send it to their spouse. That is how my content gets shared, Sam. Hardly anybody shares my stuff to their feed or their stories or anything.
It's all private messages.
It's all one-to-one, one-to-one, one-to-one. People share my videos with their partner. Men and women, back and forth. And because I built a career for 23 years, convincing adolescents to do what I said, I'm really good at helping people feel like they're on the same team. So when people see the video, there's this like disarming nature, like, oh, even if them and their partner have been having this same fight about sex for months or years, they're like, I feel like I could send this video that I just found to my partner, and then they have some common ground. Because it's not like you're right, you're wrong. It's like, have you considered looking at it this way? This can be boring. What about this? So, and right in my bio, it says rehab the shabby marriage, right? So it's like right from the beginning, people know I'm not like hashtag marriage goalsing it like all over social media. It's like marriage is a freaking setup. Like, can you believe it? We do. Now what do we do? And there's a recurring joke that I do in my stories when I'm working here and like Manny brings me food or something. I'll take a picture of like the lunch he made me and I'll be like, oh my God, I love this guy. I can barely remember why I wanted to divorce him for so long. Like barely remember. Right.
But so real that you were there. Like, that's why it's so hopeful, I think, for women to hear, because especially if we're talking about sex, like it's so intimate. So if you are wanting to divorce someone, if you're super unhappy in your marriage, to think from going to that, and of course, it being said, we're not talking about abuse or anything like that. That's a total, like you said, consenting. To know it's possible to move to that place is so encouraging. So for you, like you said, you have your How to Keep Monogamy Hot. I feel like that right there, like you said, it's so disarming, because I think when we start talking about sex, and that's why your book is just brilliant, is you think you have to go down these roads like, oh, well, if we're going to keep it hot, we need to do X, Y, Z. We need to go here. We need to go there. So I feel like because we're instant friends, I'm like, thank you, girlfriend. Thank you for going down that road for me, knowing that it's something that like I couldn't venture to because of my stuff. So thank you for doing it for me and sharing it with me on the life lessons that come from it. And if that's for someone, more power to them. Like,
yeah.
And so I feel like you are shining the light on, thinking that the answer was here, but really finding it over here. So yeah, how did you go to that? And like now keeping monogamy hot. So women listening, like, yes, I would like to keep monogamy hot, or it's cold and I want to get it hot.
So here's the really funny thing that happened when Swing came out. So many men have read it, Sam, like so many men.
Okay.
And 80% of my emails and my DMs on social media are from men. Men, and I can see it on your face. You're like,
I know.
Wait, what?
Like, what?
No. So I know your audience may be mostly women or whatever, because you're saying like women.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. I wrote a book about how miserable I was in my marriage to a man.
Yeah.
And I wrote it in a way that men and women are both going, yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah.
Are the men connecting to you or your husband, or to you? That's how they feel.
Me. They're connecting to me, or they're finally hearing something that their wife has been saying to them that they get now. So that's what happens in my DMs a lot. Because a lot of times when people slide into my DMs, they are, so it's funny. I make videos about sex. Everybody wants to talk about feelings. Everybody in my DMs wants to talk about feelings. Okay. So a man will come into my DMs and I swear, like, it is like the behavior and the graciousness of these people is exemplary. It's amazing. Like just feel so lucky. Just
because they walk around with so much, that to have a safe person to be like, oh my gosh, finally someone I can talk to about this.
Right. And I had a guy message me yesterday and he was like, this may not be a compliment, but I just want to tell you, you're like a cool sister who gives really good advice. Who's like, really, and I was like, that's exactly how I explain it to people, that I give off like this big sister energy. So when people come into my direct messages, they're not creeping on me. They're like, oh my God, thank you so much for your video. I saw this one that I binged them, and I finally understand like what I needed to do to have more intimacy with my partner. Or, oh, I finally heard, or, oh, I realized that, like, you know, there's this like light bulb moment.
Yes.
This light bulb moment. And I don't know if you noticed, Sam, but in my videos, I don't even say he, she, man, woman. I don't even say, I don't. I'm just like, you and your partner.
Yeah.
And then just people fill in the blanks themselves. So when men are watching it, they feel like I'm getting their perspective too.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons that I wrote Keeping It Hot, the workbook, which comes out on June 14th.
Yes.
Because people were like, well, my newsletter is super popular. I have 25,000 people on my email list, and a paid newsletter too. I mean, just people are like hungry for more. Once they find one of my videos, this is what usually happens.
Yes.
Someone likes a video, then every like 30 seconds for the next 20 minutes, they like another video, then they follow me, and then someone with the same last name follows me. That's usually what happens. They just want more. There's just like, you know, they just want to be like, oh yeah, we can talk about this. It doesn't have to be full of shame or awkwardness or embarrassment that we do. A lot of people think if you marry the right person, sex should just automatically be good.
They think everything should be good. The sex, the finances, the everything.
Everything.
No struggles.
Everything. And for a lot of years, I felt shame that, oh, well, if I'm not getting the affection that I want and that I realize I need, and that I realize it's okay for me to need that, and not like, I just put so much of my worth in my independence and my self-sufficiency, that needing anything just made me feel intolerable.
Yeah. Mine is help managing everyone else's feelings. That is what I am like. My journey is like, I am not responsible for everyone's feelings. And I've put all my worth into. You
can do that. You can make everybody feel fine.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is really just codependency. It's like a codependency expert, A+, codependency Olympics.
There we are.
Hi, thank you. You know, up on the podium. So people come in want to talk about feelings, and they just want like a roadmap. Because so many things. I mean, it's just, listen, so many of us didn't see our parents exercise like great communication in front of us. Or if we did, we didn't see them talk about money. We certainly didn't hear them talk about sex. So it's like, where do you get this information from people? Right. So just creating this space. And I ask my audience a lot of questions in my stories, and then I share the responses. And like 10,000 people come to my stories every night just to see what everybody's talking.
To know what's going on.
To just give people that, give people that space to just share how they're feeling. And it's pretty fantastic. It's pretty fantastic as like a needy person in denial to create a space where other needy emotional people can go like, I need a little something. I need a, you know, and where people can support each other.
It's so true. But the thing is that when I heard that you were doing the workbook, it made sense because of my journey of like, you showed up on my radar. I was like, oh, okay, here's some tips. This isn't anything too, risque, so it's in my comfort zone. So like for the listeners, because if they don't follow you yet, like you talk about the blanket on the bed. So if you make your bed every day, people, which apparently us adults should do, even though I am not one of those adults, you put your blanket on it, and then
we have a dedicated intimacy bed covering. We actually have two. Call it a sex blanket, just a huge like cotton, tight weave, lightweight blanket. And that way, and we throw it over the bed before we have sex. That way the sheets stay clean. We love using lube and body oil. This is something like new during pandemic that we'd never used before. And I talk about my favorite brand and everything too, but then you can just like lube right up and doesn't stain anything. It just like adds to the sensation, adds to the fun of it, makes it like sort of like an event, like you're throwing out a picnic blanket. You know what I mean? Yeah. And toys, just like easy electronics to incorporate. Hey, my like, my must-haves for quickies, right? Like how to make a quickie, because sometimes you just want it to be fast, and like you don't have to apologize for just wanting it to be fast.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's why, so it's funny because that's like, I feel like the tier one is these are tips to actually start getting it done if it feels like you have these barriers. But you talk about it in the book, and I think I've even seen you talk about it on social media. I know you have, because I recognized it in the book. Is it the 12 hugs a day that your therapist had recommended? Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff when I say the bait and switch, because the thing is it's like sex is part of it. And like these tips are huge and needed, but it's like, it's also those 12 hugs a day. It's also the connecting emotionally with your partner and saying what your needs are.
So let me tell you, the first exercise in the workbook is an iceberg. And what I say is hot sex is just the tip of the iceberg. It's like the part you see, it's the part like, it's happening, not happening. But underneath, you have to feel comfortable in your body. You have to feel comfortable loving sex. Like you have to know it is okay for someone like me to like sex. You have to know, okay, I feel comfortable in like only having the family size that I want. Like, like have that
you're basically saying we have to work all of our shit out.
You have to have all of this shit worked out. And if hot sex is a side effect of a healthy relationship, and also we can tip that iceberg on its side. And it has been two people saying, okay, let's make sex better, for thousands and thousands and thousands of the couples in my community. It's been a doorway in to then saying, okay, but we don't share responsibilities really well in this house. We don't. In order to be more in the mood, honestly, like friggin' clean this damn house, because I can't do it all the time. I need more support here. I need I need your support in me giving an ultimatum to my boss that if I don't get more time off or more money, I can't work at that job anymore, because I need to be better taken care of and better fulfilled in all these places in order to naturally feel filled up and ready to say, yeah, my body deserves pleasure. Yeah, I deserve joy. Yeah, I deserve this connection with someone I love. So it's really a side effect, but we can take it like as an entry point into then figuring out all these other areas where we really want our communication and our connection to be better.
I love that idea of the iceberg on the side. I've never, that's like a new thought for me. And it's funny because the common theme I'm seeing in this whole series, and you said it in your book, and actually a friend of mine just said it to me as well, that in all the sex stuff is communication. It all is communication. If you want to explore, if you want to experiment, whether it's, all the things, lube, toys, all the things that people like, oh, it might make you uncomfortable, so you have to talk about it. Then you talk about in your book too, about that the lifestyle clubs, those were like the most emotionally healthy places you had been, where people actually understand consent. That I think for me is why it was such like I've got issues with, as I said, Dateline stuff, but it's like, oh, it's not that. I have issues with consent. Like, oh, okay. Like these are the things that when couples talk about it, it's so much healthier.
Absolutely. And that's what I want. And that's why I was willing to tell the story of my incredibly complicated marriage and feeling so unhappy. And I say in the book, like in my lovely looking life, because I felt bad that I even felt unhappy. That is the reason I had to write Swing.
Yes.
Two reasons. One, I couldn't believe we lived that crazy ass story and came out in a way better place.
Yes.
I was like, this has got to be a book. Actually, Sam, I started writing it as a screenplay because I thought there's no way I can ever admit that this happened.
That this was you. Yeah.
So I started writing it. I got first of all, I taught myself how to write a screenplay. Did you know that screenplays are only 1 page per minute of movie? So like a standard screenplay would be like 90 to 100 pages. And I thought, I can write 90 to 100
Yeah,
pages.
you could.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I got halfway through and then I stopped and I put it away. And my husband, Manny, kept saying, babe, your movie, why didn't you finish your movie? Anytime he would watch a movie, anytime we would see a trailer, he's like, none of these are as funny as your movie. You need to finish it.
Yes.
And I was like, I know, but I'm not right now. So I just don't know why. And of course, like any self-deprecating perfectionist, I was like, what is wrong with you that you can't fit? Okay.
Yeah.
The reason
that you worked through that.
Yeah. The reason I couldn't finish it is because I started sharing just a little bit of my writing online. Like, so just dipping my toe into like, maybe marriage is hard. Right?
Just kidding. It's great. We're fine. Yeah. Everything's great.
Yeah, everything's fine. Like monogamy's hard. Oh, wait, did I say that out loud? Anyway, I was like, when I would post it, I'd be like, oh my God, like the sky is going to fall. The sky didn't fall. I would get like tons of messages being like, oh my God, yes, marriage, what the hell? Like, I'd like to speak to the manager, like the one who decided on marriage. Like, yes. What? So I was like, okay, I'm not the only one. Okay. And then I knew that some people would really see themselves in the story and would find comfort in knowing it really happened.
Yes.
And they would want to put a face to the story and go, she got through it. Wow. And you know what I did, Sam, when I was still searching for a literary agent, I was, okay, first of all, a few things. I was like banking on, I'm going to get a literary agent. I'm going to get like a big 5 publisher, like Random House or something. And then I'll know that I have permission to tell this story. And I could feel that in myself. And I had left figure skating, left coaching. And I was like, I am going to play by new rules now because I've already done it that way for so long. And I know what it's like to go like, judges, do you like me yet? What about now? Okay. So I was like, you know what? No, I need to like trickster all of this and like put myself in a different situation. I'm not doing life the same way.
Yeah.
And I did it well. That way. But I was like, but I run myself into the ground and I always am left wanting more or like not being able to reach my goals. So I was like, no, this isn't the right, we need to shift this paradigm. So when I was still searching for an agent, I put a call out on social media. Hey, my book is done. This was like fall of 2019. Yeah, my book is done. If you share any of my social media posts this week, I will send you the first chapter and I'll pick one person at the end of the week and I'll send them the whole book. The word spread so quickly from people who had read the first chapter or read the whole book. Within 2 weeks, I'd sent out 425 copies of the whole book. Just the email in like the Word document. Okay. It spread so quickly and people were like, oh my God, yes. Oh my God, yes. And then all of these, I still have albums full of screenshots from responses from people.
Yeah.
And this is what I tell other writers, because I coach other writers and business owners on social media. Someone can tell you your book is great. You can't believe them. You cannot say, yes, my book is great, unless someone else reaches out and is like, so-and-so told me your book was great. And I read it because they told me I had to write it. Okay, get that? Because like someone may say to you, I loved your book.
Yeah.
I loved your book. But unless they turn to a friend, just like I was saying, my posts are shared one-to-one. That's how my book was shared too.
Yeah.
So I sent it out to all of these people because I was like, you know what? I need to let the cat out of the bag. I need to say, this is my story. This is what happened to me. I'm allowed to tell this, even if an agent never signs me. A few months later, I had 2 agent offers. But anyway, but I had to just pull the plug on like that old programming, like that old conditioning that I could just autopilot through.
And the validation, like without waiting for others to validate that your story is worthy. That
right. So, and sometimes after I stopped sending it out then after like 425, because I was like, oh, am I going to like get in trouble with an agent or an editor now? Like, oh, put the cat back.
Yeah, put it back. Stuff it back in.
I even did book club discussions, everything. Okay.
Oh.
But then anytime someone would show up in my DMs in crisis, and I don't mean like crisis, like they should call 911 or like, you know, suicide hotline, but they would be like, I signed divorce papers yesterday, but I don't know if I want to file them. I would say, give me your email address. Just give me your email address. And I would just send them the book. And now I have dozens and dozens and dozens of couples who they saw one of my, you know, one of them saw one of my videos, like, and they were like it's like their Hail Mary. They were like, I don't know what we can do.
Like this, I know I'm asking this and there is not one answer. Humor me. Look, what do you think it is? Like, so it's the Hail Mary.
It's the Hail Mary.
So we've already established that the book is about swing. You talk about your visiting, you know, lifestyle sex clubs. And
I say we're the world's worst attempted swingers because we didn't actually like seal the deal at all. Right. It was just like,
it was like a mystery reading it. Like, what is going to happen?
What is
happening?
Right. I know. And it's just like epic fail. Well, that was sexy, but epic fail. I think that's part of the appeal, part of why people resonate with the book. It was like set out like guns blazing, like on this path. And it was like, oh, mess up, embarrassment, ringworm on her ass, like all of these like really, really embarrassing things.
So many good stories. So
many embarrassing things. So I think people were like, oh, whatever I feel embarrassed about isn't that bad, or it matches, whatever, right? It's not like an embarrassment competition. And in the story, I just wrote so honestly about how I really felt. Like, remember, Sam, like, so for people who haven't read it yet, when our second, we have 3 kids, when our second was born, my husband, Manny, started getting this, he had this pain in the middle of his back, like right in the middle of his thoracic spine. Terrible. Turns out he has a tumor in his spine. And we have to go for these tests to see like what the hell it is, right? And in the book, I tell him years later that when we found out he had the tumor, my first thought was, oh my God, what if he dies? And my second thought was, oh my God, what if he dies? And then I would actually be free to have a fulfilling marriage. Like, I thought in this lifetime, I just wasn't going to get that. I wasn't going to get like that. You know, that wasn't the hand I was dealt. But
and I'm just going to ride it out. I think that is so many women, because I remember that part. And my husband and I, we've shared some of our stuff, and we've been walking through a lot. And, you know, we have gone through some really hard stuff I would not have chosen. The opposite of a sexy memoir to write. However, and I'm pretty sure that I would say you might agree, like I wouldn't change it though, because to get where we are now, to have, and that's why reading, like all the talk, you know, you talked about your therapist and the ahas you were having. It was like, this is what people need to know. Like, we think we go to fix the problem. You said something, I like was writing these notes quick before we started. When you were talking about the people you were around and what you guys kind of going into this were thinking you were, everyone presented themselves as entering the subculture because their relationship was solid and they were open-minded. They weren't there because something was missing, but rather because they were open to experiencing more than what is allowed in mainstream partnerships. If you are there, you're there professing that your mindset of abundance is so much more fun and sexiness to go around, not your fear of scarcity. And like I said, totally different, but it's like, I could see myself like, no, we're great. We're good. I'm starting a podcast on how to help people. And then it's like, oh, this is a great opportunity to really dig deep, but I don't regret it. You know, I don't. Yeah. And so for you reading your stuff, it's like, I'm wondering if people, you know, that are at that point where it's that Hail Mary, if hearing someone's the true feelings and having that safety, because the other thing you said, you actually started it in the beginning of the book. You talked about confessing to your husband that maybe that you're a reluctant monogamous, and you thought it was going to be this huge conversation with him. And he was kind of like, yeah, isn't everyone like,
He's like, no one would pick monogamy if like they really had a choice. Like we don't really have a choice in our society. So like no one would pick it.
Yeah. Like why are we? And then, you guys go through all this stuff and it's like, you end up talking. And I'm wondering now, it's like, I look at what my husband and I have been through and it's like, to have gone through what we've gone through and to be able to have the conversations we have now, which is 100% honesty. Like there is no reservation. Like that's the best thing about when your life, when you just do all the shit, whether it's by choice, it happens for you, to all of it. There is such a gift of just, you have nothing to lose. You can talk about all the things. And I'm wondering if people, like maybe that's part of what it is with you and your platform and your community. And like what we can share with listeners now is it's like, you guys, you don't have to wait till this stuff happens. You don't have to wait for things to implode. You don't have to try going down this rabbit hole or, trying these things. It's like, we're all learning, getting to this place of radical honesty.
And if we want to get to a place of radical connection, we have to go through the valley of honesty. And it's fucking awkward there. And it's messy.
Super
and
awkward.
You're just not going to get it. There's no way to get it right. Mm-hmm. So, because this is the shift in my thinking I had to adopt to even still be here, honestly. Yeah. So like really, 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 was like, I thought the only thing that was ever good enough was something that was flawless. Thank you, figure skating. Thank you, my conditioning. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Flawless is the only way to be good. Mm-hmm. So anytime there was something that was lacking in my life or in my marriage or in anything, I was like, oh, how do I gloss that over? Sometimes I might go like, hey, do you think we can make that a little bit? Hey, do you think maybe we can make that a little better?
Yeah.
No? Okay, well then let's pretend.
Then I'll just make it work. I'll make it work.
Like, have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard the expression? I think it's a British expression. Polishing a turd doesn't work, still stinks. Like it still stinks. Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
So this idea that like, oh yeah, it's good or better. It's good or better, especially with fucking social media. Okay, whatever. Good or better. Like that's the only way to succeed, right? And then when everyone's like, your challenges make you stronger, everyone's like, yeah, that's nice. But until you live through it and come out the other side. And I am so grateful for storytellers who came before me and storytellers who come every day to go like, here's my messy story and here's how I made meaning of it. Yep. Right. Until you do that. And this is a message I get quite often from people is like, if you've been cheated on, if you've cheated, if this has happened, if that's happened, if there's been any sort of breach, fracture in your relationship and you decide to stay together and work through it, not just stay together, periods, stay together and work through it. Because those are two completely different things, right?
Correct.
On the other side, and it never really stops. On the other side, you just keeps going, right? But on the other side of that fracture, of that crisis, is like, you're not scared about not being perfect anymore.
It's already shattered.
You might be scared of other shit, but being like a fake and, not actually being able to execute on any of the things you're good at and having your whole life fall apart and being miserable and looking at your kids and going, I am such a shit for being miserable when I have these lovely children, all of like that shame, that shouldn't be shameful because like mental health, is a thing we need to take care of.
Yeah.
Once you can drop that fear of not being flawless, life is so much better. And I can love my kids so much better because the only way I can allow them to be whole, amazing, annoying, unique humans is if I let myself do the same.
Yes. That's the key. Cause you just said, how do I love them? Cause so many women and dads too, I want to give credit to men too. And however, anyone, I think parents, cause it's however parents, we want so much to let our kids be who they are and embrace, all their quirks and everything. but once again, this goes back to what we talked about before of how much we're projecting, our own stuff on people. And so it's like, if we're trying to hold it together and to look perfect and to have our families look perfect, then of course we're projecting that on our kids. And so that's why there is, I think, this gift in like the fracture. I love how you said that, the fracture, because it's like, once that's gone, and I think so many people are walking around with that, not realizing. And that's what's so hard about when you do share things publicly, you, like you said, it's that 1 in 100 or 1 in 500, it comes back because it's all people with their own unprocessed stuff coming back at you. And so I think there is just such a comfort in knowing that, you're not alone with whatever it is you're walking through. And, there's hope on the other side. I think that's why your tagline of like how to rehab a shabby marriage, I think people see the sex stuff. Sex draws us in, that's why I have a feeling this series will be very highly, listened to, because it's fun, but it's like, you guys though, it's like, oh, it's all part of it though. It's all the stuff is here.
It is. It's all part of it. And I think that something that comes up a lot in my messages and my emails from people is, there's this thing about sex that even makes it different than money, that like, because you have to come together like at the same time to do the thing, right? And to come together to pause the other things you're doing. You need to know, like, the sky will not fall. You need to know that, like, oh, yes, actually, my work can be done for the day. You have to know, oh, my body is worthy of pleasure, and my body craves pleasure, even if I've pushed down that craving in myself for so long. And I talk about in the book, growing up in figure skating, weird body dysmorphia and food control things. For at least a decade of my life, I hated myself for being hungry. So when we are like limiting our enjoyment and our like our bodily sensations that say, ooh, I want that, but then we have to just turn it on over here. Like so many parts of life train us out of that. Like, oh yeah, I want to relax. Oh yeah, I want to feel good in my body. I want to feel pleasure. I want someone to serve me. I want, it's just there are all of these things in our conditioning that just make then like letting loose in the bedroom a little tricky.
Oh yeah. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, well, that's, when we talk about purity culture, and not even the far end of purity culture, just wanting to make safe decisions and not, just be put in positions that we are uncomfortable with and things like that. It's like, so I think that, especially teenagers, you look at hormones are naturally ramping up, but then all the messages are no, bad. And so you spend so much time. When you said that about the food, it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what sexual desire does. It's where, oh, you don't want to be this sex crazed person, or you don't want to be partaking in these activities. So obviously the solution, I mean, for me, we've talked about this, like, because of all the shit that gets brought up because of sex stuff and like the triggers, it's like, I'm just going to put this in a box. Like, this is it's all bad. It's all bad. It's just easier to make all this stuff bad and put it in a box.
It's like turning down that dial on like, do I have desire? Nope. Mute.
So much easier just to.
No, I'm just tuning up. And then it's like, well, then would you initiate with your partner? Would you think, oh, I want an orgasm? It feels so good right now. Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like, it's like our bodies tell us, and that's like in the book when I was finally ready to change, like how I was taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And a coach instructed me, like, take one small doable thing each day that you're going to do for yourself. And I decided, when I feel like I need to go pee, I'm going to just go pee. Okay. And people always laugh about this because how long do you hold it for every day? Because people are like, I'll just put another load of laundry. I'll just go pick up this kid, drive them back. I'll just make it right. No. I was like, no. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Stop and go pee. I call it the life-changing magic of peeing when you need to pee.
I did that, by the way. That's when I read that, I was like, I started doing that on road trips because I used to be like, I pee when I get gas like one time. And now when I have to pee, if I'm on a road trip, I pull off the interstate and I go pee because I'm over it.
You're over it. There's no like, okay, right. Okay. Like, let's just talk about pee for another minute here. Okay.
Yes.
Because there's this like toughness, this resilience that you're trying to prove to your bladder. Like what?
I'm in charge now, bladder.
You're not going to get you're not going to get your way. Okay. So, but for me, I wanted to tune into my intuition. Mm-hmm. I wanted to tap into my inner knowing. I was like, divine, work through me, give me all the answers. And it was like, go pee. No, I'm ignoring that.
I need something bigger.
Next.
Something more.
Next. So I was like, you know what? If you cannot, I call it our little meat suits, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. We're all here. We're custodians of a meat suit each lifetime. All right. So I got this one. Her name's Ashleigh. She's got good hair. She's really needy. Okay. But anyway, if I can't go, oh, she needs to pee. Oh, she's hungry. She's thirsty. Time for bed. Mm-hmm. You know what? I can't be I can't be trusted with anything else. I can't be trusted with anything else. Like really, basically just say you're living on autopilot because when something is off and maybe we should go get a blood test or a scan, mm-hmm. your body is telling you something's off, right? But if we're just like, no, sorry, I'm making the decisions here. I don't care. I don't care what you say or like what cues you have for me. So how then do we know what we like in bed? How do we know how we like our partner to touch us in the kitchen when they come up behind us? How do we know what we know if we won't even listen to the simplest things?
I was just thinking about with the intuition and kind of women and people, people listening to their bodies and how we're just so programmed, as you said, to just push through. And so when we're talking about, divorce, the podcast series, it was on divorce. And a lot of them, it was from their perspective. And so they had found, stuff had come out and they talked about, a couple of them talked about they had no idea until basically shit hit the fan and all of a sudden, but when they sat with it, obviously did therapy, once they got real honest, it was like, oh yeah, there was stuff, but I just kind of kept pushing it aside. And I feel like, start listening to your body peeing and there's just, and I know from my own life, like stuff, like I know logically the right answer. Cause of course, when you are a perfectionist, but I'm going to let this thing slide. I'm going to just like tuck this here. And if I don't address it, and that's why I think too, sex is so interesting because what we've talked about is kind of the lack of good sex and needing to improve it. But I think there's also that opposite end of the pendulum where there's people who have good sex, but not a good relationship. And
that's where we were. Even in the decade that we were so disconnected, we always had great sex. Always. One of the reasons was because I knew that was a surefire way to get connection. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why I know I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing with like my content and my writing and things like that. Yeah. My favorite way to spend an afternoon as an 11-year-old was to corner one of my friends' moms and sit them down at the table and like ask them their opinions on all the different kinds of birth control that were available. Oh yeah. Thought it was the best.
See that one coming. Interesting.
The best time ever. So, and I thought everybody liked this, Sam, but then I was at my 20-year high school reunion and my friend Jamie's like, Ashleigh, do you remember when you used to sit down my mom and ask her like, what's better, like condoms or the pill? And Ashleigh, do you know how Catholic she is? Like, do you know how Catholic she was then and how Catholic she still is? Like, that was so embarrassing. And I was like, I thought everybody was having a great time. I thought, because the moms would like answer, right?
Yes.
Because I'd be like, I'd ask questions. So they would try to answer honestly.
Yes.
Right. Because I was eager and I was like really wanting to know. But I never had a hang up about sex.
Yeah.
I never did. Until we went through all this in our marriage. And then I felt so ashamed that I wasn't just fucking grateful for my life. Right. I just felt so ashamed for just needing more than I had, like just needing.
Yeah.
That then I was like, oh, and maybe I'm a dirty whore and this and blah, blah, blah. Then it was just like the shame shitstorm.
Yeah.
And I was alone in that. Like almost no one in my life knew. And I was alone and it was dark and I was alone and it was dark. And I was just like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then therapy and work, just like really pulling back my energy into myself, even pulling it away from my kids and my husband and being like, wait, we got to make mama better here. Like, what are we going to do? And then when I started coming out the other side, I was like, oh, this is what I need. And I can actually feel confident in saying, this is actually what I want in our marriage. I don't really think we can do it because we've never been able to do it. But like, this is what I want for me and for our kids. And, you know, I really got to the point where I was excited about divorce. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be dishonest with our kids. So if we can't figure out how to have like a great loving marriage, then we say to them, listen, mommy and daddy were so good at some things. Like, we're great at figuring out finances together. Like, we made cute kids and you are smart and we're great co-parents, but relationships, like, I hope we learn from you. I hope we learn from you someday. And we get to like see good relationships modeled, because like we couldn't really figure that out. Yeah. And then when I came from that place where like I really, really, really meant it, it wasn't an ultimatum. It wasn't anything. It was just just an awareness and honesty. Like, this is where I'm at. I'm no longer willing to live things that aren't true anymore. Like,
and it was that freedom. I think like that was part of that freedom of, you've already had the crack now. So it's like, okay.
It's like, right. I can't pretend to myself anymore that I'm flawless and perfect. I can't like, nope, no, not true. And I can't pretend that with my husband or my kids anymore, because our kids saw all of it. And honestly, I explained parts of it to them as it was happening, like in age appropriate ways, because this is how we can raise a generation of kids who don't have as much to unpack. We all have confusing situations we live through. If we can have someone, an adult preferably, who can go, wow, that was hard. And was that scary? And what do you think about that? Process wow, that was hard. There we go. But when someone goes, there's nothing really wrong here.
Look around.
There's nothing wrong. Let's keep going. Don't talk about it anymore. Then they're like, wait, every sensor in my whole body was like, wrong, no. And when someone just goes, yeah, that was like so wrong. Then they're like, yeah, that's what I thought. Yes. Okay. It just gets filed into memory. Yeah. It's like trauma. Yep. Trauma is like, you know, memories that can't get filed in the right place, right?
Yeah,
like
that's what I've learned. Like, I love with trauma learning that it's anything like our body can emotionally process. And that way we take the labels and the judgments away. We're not comparing whose stuff is worse. It's like, so yeah, being able to walk through that. And that's why just kind of wrapping it up, it's like, I think about how much we're all carrying around, how much we're projecting into these situations, into our marriages. I mean, our marriage is any relationship is just a perfect opportunity for all of our stuff to come out. And, you know, and like I said, just kind of with your book too, it's so, you know, and you said just now too, like you didn't have the hangups with sex. And I think that's why for me, it was so interesting reading it, because there was this freedom of, I definitely have some hangups about it. And I was able to like untangle my hangups throughout the process. I mean, of all these conversations and while reading your book, and like to find the goodness in there is just, it's kind of this thing again and again and again, it like comes down to our own stuff working out as your partner does that too. you can build those connections. And I love that idea of the iceberg, because with sex, sex is the benefit. The way I've always looked at it is like, I've always said, like, when our kids leave the house, I don't want to just survive being married. Like, I want to actually not just even love each other. I want to like each other, like genuinely like each other too.
Yeah.
And isn't it a super benefit? And, we can also have like really good sex, and also even better, or not like all of it together, and also be emotionally fulfilled. But it feels like a pipe dream. It feels too much. But once you start working on it, it's like, it's coming together.
I mean, it's really much simpler than most people could imagine. They think like it's like in Mount Everest, right? And that's why in 15 to 30 seconds at a time, I just want to say, hey, have you considered this? Hey, what about this? Try this. Sign up for my email. Get a couple hundred words, a couple times a week. Yeah, here, maybe this, right? Just those little like prompts and suggestions. And it's like the same thing with helping teenagers feel like we're all the same. There's nothing to fight about here. No big deal. No big deal. We can all work this out, because actually we're on the same team. Right? Every married couple's on the same team. And it can feel like you're working towards common goals. Nope. You're just coming at it from different angles, and you're missing each other, So that's why I want to give some and I mean, some people will love like, Brene Brown or the Gottmans or love languages, right? Like there are all those things that like I love, but I'm like, you know what? Let's just start with sex. Let's just talk about, we want to have better sex. Boom. All right. Then these are the things.
And also you don't have to wait. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, you don't have to have, like, yes, do the deep work. All the stuff I highlighted in the book, but you can get some lube and like,
let's just get some lube and a sex blanket and get like get a vibrator and just like, there we go. Things have shifted a little.
And then you're feeling better.
Right. That's the thing.
Deal with the next thing.
That's the thing. When we experience these tiny successes, then we're just more willing to come together.
Yes. And come together. Sorry.
Together. There we go, baby.
Just that one. Thank you. Thank you for your book. Thank you for the workbook. Thank you for being willing to share your story. I say this all the time. Not everyone is meant to share their story publicly, but for people that do, I'm extremely grateful, because we all learn so much from everyone's story. And so I just truly thank you. Thank you for sharing today. And I just, I do highly recommend reading your book. I have not read a book in so long, and I just like blew through it. And like I said, for me, it's the best bait and switch. So I'm like, guys, there's so much good stuff in here. So thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you? And of course, get all of your amazing tips.
Yeah. Ashleigh Renard on Instagram. And it's Ashleigh with tons of extra letters. It's Ashleigh, which is spelled ASHLEIGH. So find me on Instagram, send me a DM, say hello. I respond to every message. And then you'll see there, I have a newsletter. I have tons of resources. You'll see my link in bio. People could get Swing. It's available everywhere books are sold. Oh, and I'm not sure when this is going to air, Sam, but Keeping It Hot, the workbook is available for pre-order. And it comes out June 14th. If you order before June 14th, you can be entered to win. I'm giving away a super sexy giveaway, a super sexy trip for two. So airfare, 3 nights accommodations, luxury resort, spending money, and like a menu of sexy like excursions that you can pick from with your partner. So
Thanks for listening to Flushing It Out with Samantha Spittle, where we explore growth and healing through vulnerable conversation. Our hope is that you feel seen and find tools for growing resiliency and tackling your own growth and healing. Be sure to subscribe and check out the VIPs and other resources at SamanthaSpittle.com. This has been a Spitfire production.
That was the greatest thing I've ever heard.